We are in Proverbs chapter 11. Last week we ended on verse 18. We're going to begin on verse 18 again because this is a small section just to notice the way that Proverbs is constructed. We have said they're not put in a random order at all. There's thought behind it. And the order is, of course, there by way of the Holy Spirit, word for word and in order. This is the way it has been put down, and it's been put down for a reason. And I just want to make note, that in chapter 10, we showed the pattern that can be found of how things are grouped and how things overlap in one chapter. In just one chapter, how we can see that. And that there was an awful lot of overlap to where you can have subject A, B, C, and D. And in one verse, you could have A, B, and C all being addressed right there. And D could be addressed in numerous other places as well. And not only can each subject be brought in on its own, but it can also be brought in with other matters. So multiple things are being taught. Now, we did that in chapter 10. We're not going to do that for the entire book because it would become just monotonous. We could do it. But I'm afraid that everybody would grow tired of it and say, well, you proved your point. And, well, yeah, it is a point to be proven. And that you're beating a dead horse. Okay, well, we don't want to do that either. But you could do it. You could do chapter 11 just like you did chapter 10. But in chapter 11, what we are doing that we didn't do in chapter 10 is that with each proverb, or at least grouping of proverbs, we bring in a biblical example or another statement somewhere else in the Bible, showing that, yes, Proverbs is working hand in hand with the rest of the Bible. And the rest of the Bible would recognize that Proverbs is, in fact, well, it's correct, what is being stated. Now, verse 18. When we get to chapter 12, when we get to chapter 12, we're going to do something else that we didn't do in chapter 10 or chapter 11. When we get to chapter 12, there's something I've already got planned that we are going to be doing. And once again, we're not going to do the entire book showing proverb by proverb examples necessarily. We will when we need to. But chapter 11, that is our goal, just in this chapter. It is our goal to do that. Now, chapter 11, verse 18. The wicked earns deceptive wages, and note that word deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. So here we have this word deceptive, and we have the word sure in this. All right? Two very, very opposite words. What is sure is absolute. It is going to happen. It is something that you can count on. It is sure. And there are very few things in life that are sure. There's very few. I could say tomorrow morning, for a fact, the sun is going to rise again. And I might be wrong. It may not. It may not. Now, scientifically, the science community would say, well, of course it is. The earth continues to rotate. And, okay, it might, but there's no surety of it. Why? Because it all may end today. And there is no more sunrise for us on this side of the world. There is no more. It's done. All right? That's not a surety. I could say that for a surety, we will all be alive tomorrow. There is no surety in that. But when God says something is sure, it is sure. But one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. There is a reward. This isn't just some wages. And they're definitely not deceptive wages. Deceptive wages are wages that, okay, let me put it this way, just by way of an illustration. Suppose I had work I was going to hire you to do. And you ask, how much are you going to pay for this work? And I say, I'm going to pay you in, I'm going to make this up, I'm going to pay you in Slogmonian dugies. Okay, well, that's valuable. Oh yeah, it's very valuable. Yeah, more so than the dollar. Okay, dollar's nothing. This is, you can, okay, now, that would be deceptive wages. It's something that isn't going to get you anywhere. Okay, nothing. And even if I were to, we'll just change it up a little bit, even if we were to get gold by the things that we do, those still are finite. That is, it comes to an end. The wicked earns less than that. The wicked earns something that is deceptive. It's something that it isn't going to be eternal in the least. It's going to just have the limits of everything that is material. And when you die, okay, it may continue on, but you're not. Not on this earth, you're not. And you have these deceptive wages. Deceptive wages that somehow this is going to make me happy, that this is going to be everything that I need, and that I can live out my life in ease. All right? All of that is deceptive, but the righteous get a sure reward. Now, we want to go to verse 21, because between verses 18 and 21 are 19 and 20, obviously, but these two verses, 18 and 21, kind of sandwich the other two in. All right? Because they're addressing the same thing. Be assured, an evil person will not go unpunished, but the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. Now, we need to understand that those deceptive wages goes right into this. You will be punished. Somehow you're going to get these wages, and it's okay. That your wickedness has brought this on, and it's okay. There will be no punishment at all. There'll be no guilt at all. There'll be no culpability at all. None of that. God is not mocked. Galatians 6 and verse 7. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. That's another assurity. That is sure. You sow wickedness, you're going to get wickedness. You make your life wreckage, what else is it going to be? It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Nothing good is going to come out of this. So here we have 18 speaking of sure reward and also deceptive wages. Verse 21, talking about the evil person will not go unpunished. Offspring of the righteous will be delivered. Now, verse 19. Here is also what is going to happen. Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Here's this comparative. All right, and most, like in chapter 10, most of the verses in chapter 11 are comparative verses. The wicked person this, the righteous person that. The wise do this, and the foolish do that. It's comparative. And like in chapter 10, there are, I think in this one, there are 6 verses that are not comparative at all. It's just talking on a specific subject without talking about the opposite of it. Now, whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. This is what will happen. Now, why is this happening? Why is it happening? Verse 20, those of crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord. That's why. Those who are of a crooked heart, those of crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord. But the blameless ways are his, but those of blameless ways, rather, are his delight. This is why you have the sure reward and the evil person will go unpunished. This is why. This is why you have that in verse 19, the one who's going to live and the one who's going to die. It's because there is a God in all of this, and there's certain behavior that He despises. And there's certain behavior that are His delight, His absolute delight. He rewards one and He punishes the other. And now we come to verse 22. All right. Well, actually, I didn't even. There's part of this I want to. Okay, Revelation 22. We're not finished with what we just did in between 18 and 21. Okay, Revelation chapter 22, and we want to go to verse 14. Blessed are those who do His commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter through the gates into the city. All right, here is the steadfast, whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live. And ultimately we see, that is the case. Ultimately, when everything is said and done, when all is over, when all is judged, blessed are those who do His commandments, that they may have access or have the right to the tree of life. And they may go through the gates of the city. They can enter. They can enter right in. That is given to those who do the commands of God. That's given to them. And here, coming back to Proverbs chapter 11, whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live. And it isn't limited to life on this earth, because we've already discussed, first off, everyone is going to die unless Christ comes first with judgment. Number two, yes, someone can be very righteous, be a faithful person, and die of natural causes or even by the hand of the wicked. We can look at Christ as being number one. We can look at Stephen. We can look at James and John the Baptist. We can look at those. They died at the hands of wicked people. And of course, we can go to those wicked kings and queens in the past in Israel and in Judah, who went out and they killed the righteous. Saul killed a village of Levites. That's rather wicked. Okay. So what is being discussed here in Proverbs 11 and verse 19, whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, that's not limited to life on this earth. Because as we said, life on this earth is limited. It's very limited. And everyone dies here, one way or another. Everyone dies. Now, let's go to verse 22. And here is one of these verses that is just speaking on one subject. It's not showing two things contrasted. It's one subject. And this is a simile. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion. And we're going to discuss this for a little bit. First off, it is a simile. This is not the first simile we have in the book of Proverbs. I think we can go to toward the beginning of chapter 2 and see the first simile there. A simile is it is comparing two things. It's comparing two things that would seem unalike, not seem similar at all, and you're using the word like or as in it, as opposed to a metaphor where you don't use like or as. All right? And here is like a gold ring in a pig's snout. So you've got, just where I grew up, just down the road from where I grew up was a cell barn. What's a cell barn? That's where people would, you have cattle ranchers that would bring in their cattle. You'd have those bringing in pigs, and there would be some other animals that might be there. Of the larger variety, not chickens or anything like that, of a larger variety, sheep, maybe goats, maybe. But we would go there and we would see these would all be up for auction. and we'd see some pretty stout pigs in there. And there were some big ones. And decorating one up with a gold ring wouldn't do a whole lot. But here is this comparison of, and it's kind of an absurdity. It's kind of is, that you have this pig with a gold ring in its snout is like a beautiful woman without discretion. Now, we can see examples of this very thing. Matthew chapter 14, verses 6 through 12. Also, Mark chapter 6, 21 to 29, we see Herodias' daughter. She's dancing before Herod and his guests. No doubt she was beautiful. No doubt she was. And Herod makes, and we talked about this not too long ago, makes a rash vow. It's dumb. But he's there, it's a special occasion, he's there to impress his guests. And she's obviously impressive. She's doing this dance. And he says, in this rash sort of vow, which makes you wonder, what kind of guy is this anyway? But I'll give you anything up to half my kingdom. And he does say that in Mark. He does say that, up to half my kingdom. And this is Herodias. Now, Herodias is his wife, and a woman he should not have married. That she belonged to Herod's brother. They were married. Herodias, Philip, his name was Philip. Herodias used to be Philip's wife, but now she happens to be Herod's wife. All right, and John the Baptist told Herod, she can't be your wife. She's your brother Philip's wife. She can't be yours. Well, he didn't like that too much, but he still actually respected John. Herodias, however, wanted him dead. All right. So her daughter is dancing before Herod and his guests. He gives this vow. Now she goes to her mother, and her mother says, the head of John the Baptist on a platter. All right, that's what you want. Now that's a swine. That is a pig. That's a pig. And all right, so here comes the daughter to Herod, and she tells him. And he didn't think that was going to happen. And now would be the time to say, no, I'm not murdering for you. I'm not doing that. And murdering a prophet, because he did consider him to be a prophet. He did. But because of his own pride, it is that, and the pressure of those men around him to impress, no doubt. And they wouldn't have had any consideration for John the Baptist. Live or dead, they don't care. And so, yeah, go ahead. Have him killed. And so the head of John the Baptist is given on a platter to Herodias. And the disciples come and they take the body. And it doesn't say what happened to the head. She may have kept it. I don't know. But is this a pig? Yes, this is a swine. Now, what did Jesus say about that very thing in Matthew chapter 7? Verse 6, don't cast your pearls before swine. Do not give what is holy to, don't give what is holy to the dogs. Don't cast your pearls before swine, lest they turn and rend you. All right. Now, Proverbs 11:22 is this woman without discretion. Now, we can look at this word without this word discretion and think minor things about it, but it's not minor. And this word can be taken, actually this Hebrew word can be taken to mean something of less harm, something of minor consideration, actually. Something minor. But it obviously isn't meant like that. This word, discretion, means judgment. This is a woman without judgment, is a woman without discernment. But still, this swine. Beautiful in appearance, no doubt about that. But beneath that surface, there is something not beautiful at all. Not in the least. And now, before, we've discussed this briefly, before someone decides that the Bible is being overly harsh to women, no, the Bible is harsh to wicked people regardless of who they are. Man or woman, both can be seen as righteous if they're righteous, and that's the desire. Both can be shown as wicked if they're wicked. That is not the desire. And from the book of Proverbs, we have wisdom personified as a woman and folly personified as a woman. We also have in chapter 31, we have the virtuous woman who is also described by way of a simile as a merchant ship. All right, it's not, and which comes off as a really as not copying or playing off of this a gold ring on a swine. Well, a virtuous woman is like a gold ring on I can't think of it. No, it is doing something completely original. Okay, something completely original. That of a merchant vessel, this merchant ship, and is readily supplying and taking care of her family. That's what she's doing. And, of course, that's what the husband is supposed to be doing as well. All right? Both play their part in it. And it's the one who's virtuous that you want. You don't want the one that has no discretion or able to judge right or wrong. And, the Bible has harsh things to say about fools as well. Now, verse 23, the desire of the righteous ends only in good, but the expectation of the wicked in wrath. That is the final reward for the wicked. Whatever you did in this life, whoever you happen to have fooled or deceived, whatever riches you may have gained, whatever nations you may have conquered. We can go to that sort of scale. Whatever you may have done, whether small or great, whatever the wickedness was, it won't go unpunished. That's verse 21. But this expectation of the wicked, it goes to wrath. Now, in chapter 10, verse 24, it speaks of the dread of the wicked, what the wicked dread, what the evil person dreads. Well, what do you think they dread? They dread judgment. They dread it. And personally, I believe, someone can try to say that I'm wrong, and that's fine, but personally I believe there's a lot of people in this world, and I mean a lot of people in this world who are doing evil. They're in that category, do evil, and they do fear what happens after they die. They do fear it. And they may be subduing it. They may be taking care of it by way of some kind of substance. They may be taking care of it by way of just ignoring it and burying that feeling. they may be doing that. But I think down inside most people, they fear what comes next, because the reassurance of the atheist is not reassuring. That there's nothing beyond. Nothing happens after death. Well, yeah, that's just the beginning. Death is just the beginning. And I will tell you just a brief story of a man I knew, and he was actually one of my teachers. Very good man. When he was in his 20s, he was not a Christian, knew that he probably should be, but he wasn't. And he knew that he should have been doing better, but he wasn't. And he was at that point in his life, he was a coal miner. And one day, there was a cave-in, and he was right in the midst of it. And in his mind, he thought he was going to die. And in his mind, he also thought, it's too late. He feared what was about to happen. He feared for what was about to take place, because he had a fear of it, just something that he had subdued, a fear of judgment. He survived, obviously. He survived. He was pulled out of it. And for him, he changed his life. He did. Otherwise, he would never have been one of my teachers. He did change his life. And yeah, during that time in his life, he said the only thing he ever wrote was his name on the back of a check. That's all he ever wrote. And that's all he ever expected to write. That's all he ever expected to do was work in a coal mine, and that's pretty much all he ever knew. But he changed his life at that time because he did not want to die unprepared. Now, we come back to the expectation of the wicked in wrath. What they think is going to happen has been a deception. What they hope has been going to happen is empty. And it ends in wrath. Now, verse 24, we're starting into just a little bit into, the next 5 verses, into another theme in that's already, in this chapter, that's already been introduced. It was introduced in verses 16 and 17. And this has to do with a willingness to give and a willingness to help others. There's the benevolent side to it. There's also that side to it of giving back to God. That's just going to be. That's going to be there. All right, so we'll just go back up to verse 16 because this introduces it. A gracious woman gets honor. Now I'm going to read the New King James rendition or rendering of this. But ruthless men retain riches. All right, well, that may sound like retaining riches. Well, isn't that what you want to do? Well, actually, no. It's not what you want to do. You want to give. Ruthless men are not going to be given. We have no sympathy for such. Who's Ebenezer Scrooge? All right, not a biblical example, but we understand the type. Someone who has no compassion, someone who is only concerned about the bottom line and how much money they have and keeping as much of that as they can ruthlessly. By the way, now verse 17, the merciful man does good for his own soul, but he who is cruel troubles his own flesh. Now I want to read from the English Standard. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. Okay? That there is this, in both of this, there is this kindness or this mercy that is beneficial even to themselves. It's beneficial to them. Even though they're doing the kindness or the benefit to somebody else, it helps them as well. Now we come to verse 24. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Now this too is sure. It doesn't say it's sure, but the implication in it is that, and with all these proverbs, is that these things are sure. You can just found your life right on top of this. The one who gives freely will grow richer. Well, we can go to Haggai 1:6 and see where God speaks to the people of that day. Let me hop over there. You have sown much and bring in little. You eat but do not have enough. You drink but are not filled with drink. You clothe yourselves but no one is warm. And he who earns wages to put into a bag with holes. Thus says the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. And then he gives them the solution. Go up to the mountain and bring wood and build the temple, that I may take pleasure in it and be glorified, says the Lord. You look for much, but indeed it came to little. And when you brought it home, I blew it away. Why, says the Lord of hosts? Because my house that is in ruins, while every one of you runs to his own house. This would be, yes, sacrifices and giving for the sake of, well, serving God and for Him. That's what it is. It's not just limited to benevolence of others. Now, it does include that. Let's not forget that. Nor let us forget that of giving to God. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Now, if we were to look in the reign of David, and especially in the reign of Solomon, we will see, and my sister was reading, I guess, going from 1 Kings to 2 Chronicles, and was talking about all the sacrifices that were being made. Just the massive amounts of sacrifices. Incredible numbers of oxen and sheep and goats. You can't do that unless you have them. You can't sacrifice what you don't have. Obviously, that nation had become very wealthy. They had plenty. They had plenty. Why? Because they were obeying God and doing precisely what He said they were supposed to do, for the most part. Now, obviously, there are those that are just going to be wicked. Obviously, there are. But for the most part, they are doing what God called them to do. The priesthood was solid. You have prophets that are appreciated. They're not being slaughtered or run off. You have this time where even the king, David, is a prophet. And Solomon is writing. He's an inspired writer. Now, he goes wrong. And, of course, for a period, David goes wrong. Solomon goes wrong. But we see where God did give to them bountifully for them to make this kind of sacrifice. And all you have to do is go to places like where you have the that massive ceremony in the opening of in the finishing of the temple. It's massive. And the amount of sacrifices being done surrounding all that, it's a lot. Obviously, they had been blessed. They had been blessed. There's no other way to go around it. No other way to think about it. That if they have this kind of sacrifices, that means someone had to have given them that, and that would be God. And they are willingly giving it back. Now, we go to, so we're Proverbs 11, verse 25. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. So this too is one of those that is not comparing two opposite things. It's you bless, you'll be enriched. You water, you'll be watered as well. All right? You help others, you will receive help. You help with being a providential blessing to somebody else, you'll be blessed as well. All right? That's what's going to happen. And as Jesus points out, you don't, give to those who can give back. You don't give to those expecting something back. You give to those who they can't give back. They can't. And you are doing them good. Now, you can do good to someone who already has abundance. No one's saying not to. But I think the idea there is the expectation of something back. That I did this for you, I expect you to do something for me in return. But when you're giving to someone who can't do that, you're not getting anything in return, at least nothing of any kind of material value. They can't do that. But God says you will benefit from it. You will be enriched. You will be watered as well. Now, verse 26, the people curse him who holds back grain, but a blessing is on the head of him who sells it. Now, let's just talk about this for a second. You have scarcity. As we can see at points in time in the history of Israel and Judah, of times of scarcity, where there is very little food, either by way of some kind of famine, such as in Exodus. It was right to begin with. In Genesis, in Joseph's day, or later on where you have sieges around certain cities, whether it's the Syrians or whomever who've come in, and there is scarcity. You can't get to the food, or it has been destroyed. If you have someone who has it all stored away and will not sell it to people willing to buy it, will not sell it, no. Well, they're not going to be too happy about that. The people curse him who holds back grain. All right. Joseph, in his day with Egypt, he had, because of God, because of the blessings of God, and God telling him how to interpret the dreams, knowing how to interpret those dreams, was able to prepare Egypt for severe famine and everybody else, including those brothers who sold him into slavery. Okay. Now, the idea was that when everyone was going to need grain, Egypt was in a place to sell it. They weren't going to withhold it. They could have, if they wanted to, no, this grain is for Pharaoh and who he wants to give it to, nobody else. Or it's whoever Joseph wants to give it to and nobody else. But it is by just an understanding, these people need grain, they're willing to pay for it, so we sell it. Now, in 2 Kings chapter 7, we have Elisha, who there's famine going on. There's Elisha who speaks of the prices of food are going to drop dramatically from being something that no one could possibly buy to now being normal. And he says it's going to happen in a day. And of course, how is that going to happen? The city is surrounded by the Syrians, and as it turns out, you have 4 lepers who are not allowed in the city, and they have come to a conclusion, okay, we're going to die one way or another. We're going to die without food, or we're going to die by way of the Syrians, but maybe if we go and just kind of plead our case with the Syrians, they'll let us go. All right, they're not allowed in the city. So the Syrians go, the lepers, these lepers go, and they find the Syrians are gone, and everything they have is left behind. Everything. No Syrians, no human, just an empty camp. And it's like things scattered like they left in a hurry, which they did. And then what do? They're hungry. They begin to eat. And then they say, we're doing wrong. Why? Why do they say that? Because they're stealing from the Syrians? No. Because they need to tell everybody who's starving in the city, there's food here. The Syrians have left. And it took, it's an absolute fulfillment of what Elisha said. And these 4 lepers then announce it to the city, and then in a 24-hour period, everything went down. As far as, you can now purchase food. And it wasn't just a huge looting thing. You could purchase food for a very, very reasonable price at that point. You could pay and you could live. Okay, but those lepers came to a realization, we can't just let them starve and we're out here gorging ourselves. We can't do that. We need to let them know. And of course, it would be that a blessing on the head who sells it. Blessing on the head, in this case, of who tells about it. Now, we just read verse 27. We'll come back here next week. Whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. And we have a saying about that. You go looking for trouble, it's not going to take you long. It's not going to take you long at all. You go looking for it, you're going to create it. It's not going to take long at all. And there will be trouble. And so we will come back to that. Those that diligently seek favor, and those who, let's just face it, diligently seek trouble. They are seeking for evil. And thank you, everyone, for being with us, and we'll continue next week.